Guys, welcome back to Southern Extreme TV. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Today we are going to be reviewing the DiscoveryOpt LHD NV rifle scope. I'm super excited to be talking about it with you guys. So first of all, I want to talk about DiscoveryOpt and what I know about them. I did a previous review on a scope that they had sent out, and I've actually got it right here. And this thing is a absolute beast of a scope. It's real big, bulky, robust, very audible turret clicks. And this model was the 5x25 and absolutely loaded. It's the EDPRS. And I'll be honest with you, going into the initial review of this rifle scope, I was very pleased with the way everything turned out. They exceeded my expectations. The glass was very, very clear, and everything that was on the scope was very user-friendly. So I'm excited to be reviewing a little bit more budget-friendly option from Discovery versus the previous scope that I reviewed. This scope is a 3x12x42, and it is a first focal plane, which is a big deal. I like the first focal plane scopes, especially if you're going to be doing any type of long distance shooting. That's a big deal. So you guys are going to be kind of going through with me on this open box review. I've not taken this scope out whatsoever, so my kind of first impressions and initial impressions are going to be real and live and true for the most part. So let's take a look at what we got in the box. Box, nothing fantastic about it, just very simple. Get the job done. Set that to the side. Packaging, nice foam pad up on the top to keep everything nice and fresh. Looks like we've got a cleaning cloth, so we've got a nice cleaning cloth that they provide us, typical for just about every scope manufacturer out there nowadays. Does give you a little information card, a little bit about the reticle and kind of what you can expect with this scope inside. So nice that they provided that. And they provided, looks like a quality control checklist. So it looks like it's passed all of the QC processes that they put their rifle scopes through, which is for an overseas scope not made in America. That's a big deal that they're taking the time to go through that. And just double check that everything's where it's supposed to be at on the scope. Looks like we got another QC card as well, so it looks like two processes of this scope getting checked. And then it just comes with a little instruction manual as well, which we're not going to read that. You guys know we're not diving into the details on the user manual. So right off the bat package, there's looks like a sunshade. Yep, so it comes with a sunshade, so that's really, really nice. I'm excited that they incorporated this into the scope. I know on the last scope that I reviewed, I think that they actually provided like 3 different size sunshades, which I thought that was a little odd in my personal opinion. And that was one of the things that I noted as somewhat of a negative, because as a user, you're paying for those 3 extra sunshades, when really and truly you could probably get away with just one sunshade and cut that cost even more. So I'm glad that they're only giving you one sunshade. Let's actually take this scope out and see what we are working with. So first initial impression of it is a very clean and sharp looking scope on the exterior. The magnification knob seems to be pretty smooth. It is a little bit more of a low profile versus the previous one that I reviewed. And it's got a sleeker finish on it, whereas the last DiscoveryOpt scope that I reviewed, it almost had a matte feel to it, and it didn't quite have the shine that this one has. So this one's going to look more typical of your general rifle scopes, with probably what you have in your gun safe or on your current rifles. So it looks like you've got side parallax adjustment on the left, which is really nice. 25 or actually 20, 10. So it goes way down all the way out to 200, 500, and then it says out to infinity. So that's nice that they've got the parallax adjustment on the left. I really like that, especially on a higher magnification scope. And then you've got an illuminated reticle as well. So it looks like you can go from looks like a stage 1 brightness all the way to a stage 6. So that's really nice that they give you an illuminated reticle. I think that that's a very big deal when it comes to first focal plane scopes, because if you're not familiar with the first focal plane scope, that reticle will actually increase and decrease in size depending on your magnification level. So if your magnification level is out to, like, say 3 or 4 power, then a lot of times it can be difficult to see those really fine crosshairs in low light conditions if you're in a hunting situation. But having that illuminated reticle basically just takes that issue completely away. So I'm glad that they offer that all on the left hand side of this scope. Looks like you've got exposed turrets, which I'm a fan of exposed turrets, but I like my exposed turrets to have a locking feature, and it appears that this one does have that. So I'm attempting to turn the elevation knob here. It's not turning, and I can pull it up, a very nice loud audible click, and then we can make our adjustments in elevation down or up. I'm assuming that this is going to have a 0 stop. I did not read anywhere on the box where it specifically said that there's a 0 stop feature, so I would have to unscrew this knob and take a look and see. But to lock it, you mash it down and you're back in place. And I'm assuming your windage is going to be the exact same way. Pull it out, you'll hear a click, and then you can make your adjustments there. Nice, loud, audible, nice tactile clicks as you're adjusting that windage, and then mash it back down to lock it in place. So for the most part, I really like the elevation and the windage turrets. I like the fact that they lock. I like the fact that they're low profile, and I do like the fact that the numbers on it are visible. They're not really small. A lot of times you run into scope manufacturers where they try to fit too many numbers on this dial, and it's very hard to see, especially in a low light situation. So I'm glad that those are visible. Looks like it comes with a scope cap, and this was one feature that I was not a huge fan about on the previous scope, and it looks like they've not changed anything as of yet. So you'll notice out here on the front you have a flip up style cap, and surprisingly enough, this scope cap is just like the previous one, is very nice. Like, you know, a lot of times you get these free scope caps, if you will, that come with the scope, and they don't snap in place, they don't hold. There's a lot of things that they don't do, and this scope, the cap that comes on the front, is absolutely fantastic. But in my opinion, where they lack is this cap in the front of the scope. It would be nice to have matching scope caps, whereas on the front you have a cup that slides on and off. So there's no flip up cap that comes in the front eyepiece. I really wish if they would provide the exact same quality flip up cap on the front that they offer in the back, then I would be very impressed, because that's one thing that I've always got to do whenever I go and I buy a new rifle scope, is I go straight to a gun store and I buy a nice set of scope caps that hold that I try to get to hold up, and this appears to be a really nice scope cap for the money. I just wish that they would offer it on the front end. So scope cap on the front, scope cap on the back, and let's do an initial glass check. So first impressions, I don't see any scratches or burrs or anything like that. Reticle is really nice and clear and crisp, so that's pretty sweet. Let's dial it on in. I want to see exactly what this reticle looks like. Okay, so eye relief is pretty good on this scope for the most part. There is a little bit of an issue with some scopes tend to be a little more finicky when you move your head left or right. That sight picture will either start to you will lose some of that sight, that full sight picture, or it'll completely go black in itself. I really like a scope that's a little bit more forgiving than this one, but from a shootability standpoint, I think once you get it onto a rifle and you get that anchor point set time and time again behind this scope, I don't think that's going to be a big issue, and I don't think it's going to be a big issue really until you get to that higher base magnification around 12 power. But I will tell you that I'm really impressed with the clarity of the glass. And again, I mean, we're just sitting on the inside of a house right now, but from what I can tell, the reticle is really clean. Doesn't have a whole lot of, like, there's not a lot of fog. Sometimes on your cheaper scopes, you'll get some fuzziness or some haziness in between your hash marks, and these are very clear, clean, and well defined. I'm actually a fan of this reticle. It's got your numbered measurements down below for your holdovers. Not a bad reticle. I'm a fan of that. The only thing that I can tell is when you zoom this all the way, your magnification out all the way to 3, which is the lowest base magnification, that reticle does get kind of difficult to see. But they're anticipating, you know, if that animal or that target is close enough to where you're on the base mag of 3, you really don't have to be that dang precise with that reticle because you're going to be covering up the bulk of your target anyway. Let's take a look at their illuminated reticle. Okay, so the illuminated reticle is nice. I really, really like that. It's not the entire reticle. It looks like it's about the first. So you got about, I don't know if this is a mil or MOA. I'm just going to assume, yep, it's an MOA scope. So it looks like 6 MOA up, down, left, and right is going to be illuminated in that crosshair, and the rest of the crosshair is not going to be illuminated, which I'm okay with that, because in a low light shooting situation, when I zoom this out to 3 or 4 power, I really want that main reticle where the largest percentage of my shot placement is going to be. That's the only thing that I really want to be illuminated, because too much illumination can actually be bad. It can actually backfire and cause you to not be able to see your target that you're trying to get a shot at. So all in all, I'm really impressed with this scope. You know, doesn't have the 50 millimeter objective lens, which that's okay. I'm not a big, you know, I'm not going to chalk it up as that's a real big negative. I just prefer 50 millimeter ends, especially if you're going to get a 30 millimeter tube base. So you've got the 30 millimeter tubes. You don't have the 1-inch bases, which the 30 millimeters is nice. I like that, but in my mind, they might, if they're going to sell it with a 42 millimeter objective lens on the front, they might be able to cut some cost out of the scope by reducing this main tube body to a typical 1-inch tube diameter. So that's one negative I got. Let me double check and make sure that is a 1-inch tube, because I could be completely wrong, because they give you some scope rings. So that is one other option that I really like about this company, is they offer a set of Picatinny scope rings. The one thing I don't like about it is they send you with high scope rings. So basically this is scope rings that is intended to be used on an AR platform. It is not intended to be used on a bolt action, and the reason for that is because of how high these rings are. Typically with a bolt action rifle, you want a set of low or medium rings, because it will get that bottom area of that front objective lens closer to the barrel, whereas with an AR you need typically a higher set of rings to get that scope bottom up away from the base of the AR, just because it requires a higher mount. So all in all, really impressed with these scope rings. The scope rings are not great. They're not bad. They're just cheap scope rings at the end of the day. It's a great way that, you know, you can get the scope. I dropped a screw there. You can get the scope and you can start shooting the same day, which is really nice. So all in all, a lot of bang for your buck when it comes to this scope. I'm really impressed with the LHD NV from DiscoveryOpt. It's a 3 by 12 by 42 first focal plane scope, which is really nice. And I think for the money, with everything that you get in this scope, I think that's a very, very great consumer oriented mindset whenever they created this scope and put it out on the market. Again, want to compare it to their other scope, which again, this is the ED-PRS. So the idea is that this is more of a precision rifle, and you can see the difference. So here is the LHD NV and here is the ED-PRS. You can see the size difference, and there's obviously a notable weight difference. This scope here is going to weigh about 2 or 3 times what this scope right here is going to weigh. So this one is going to be really, really good whenever it comes to like a hunting rifle where you want to keep weight at a minimum, but it still gives you that option to have really precise shots at long distances with that first focal plane, and the fact that you've got the exposed turrets. This one's going to be more along the lines of your precision rifle shooting. If you're not worried about weight, maybe you're hunting in a big box blind where you've got a bench or a tripod or whatever the case may be, this is going to be more your style. So I really think that they did a good job on it. I think they've got a lot of features that they offer with the scope. I'm really impressed with the glass. A lot of these overseas scopes that I'm seeing, the glass is not great, but DiscoveryOpt, hands down, from an overseas scope manufacturer, has been the clearest in my opinion. So if you're in the market, you're looking for a budget-friendly scope that's going to get the job done, head on over to DiscoveryOpt. They sell stuff on Amazon as well. Check out their lineup of different rifle scopes. I think you guys are going to be pleased. So if you're new to Southern Extreme TV, thank you so much for hanging out with me. Hopefully y'all enjoyed watching today's video. If you are new, be sure to stay tuned because we've got a lot of videos coming out in the future. We've got product reviews, hunting reviews, shooting reviews, all kinds of stuff going on. So thanks for hanging out with me. I'll see you guys on the next episode.